Today we're going to be taking a quick look at the Miyoo Mini. Yes, another retro emulation handheld straight out of China. There's tons of options. I mean, if you want to look at this as a negative or a positive, you don't have to buy all of them, but this one might be for you, it might not be. I did find this one pretty interesting for the price. It's around the $50 price point. It's a mini. We'll see it in a second here. This one came with 32 gigabyte micro SD card. Doesn't state it on here, but there's like a little tiny rumble motor built into it. 2.8-inch IPS screen, full screen original resolution display, 1900 milliamp hour lithium battery. Pretty good stuff. Now, the chipset that this thing is using is it's an ARM Cortex A7 dual core 1.2 gigahertz CPU with 128 megabyte DDR3 RAM. Not the most powerful thing in the world, but what this thing is capable of doing as far as like 8 and 16-bit games, I feel from messing with it a little bit that it does that stuff fairly well. But, you know, is the form factor going to be good for you? Is this what you're looking for? It's tiny, man. It's tiny, but it looks really neat in my opinion. The D-pad actually just, you know, from outward just, you know, appearances, I really like the style of it. It's just really small. So, I mean, it's if you got really big hands, might not be as comfortable for you, but the D-pad feels decent. Feels really good. Then you have your select and start. Then these like candy, like coated buttons. I mean, they look like Skittles almost. They're shiny. They have a nice, decent feel to them. Not the best, not the worst, but everything is kind of, you know, really close. So for the size of it, everything's going to be small. Like my thumb could just hit all 4 buttons at once. But then the weird thing is the way they went about the L2, R2, L, and R. They're all back here. And it's kind of interesting because I thought, man, this is going to be so cramped. And it is in a sense, but like the way I've been messing with it, like they have the L and R kind of recessed, like it's under the R2 and L2. So it's almost like the middle of my index finger, like I use it to hit the R button, and then, you know, the tip, just the tip, hits the R2 and the L2, and it feels okay. Like getting used to it took a moment, but it's decent. The way this thing is built and how they have those buttons on the back, I actually kind of like that. Not the greatest thing ever, but with the form factor, it works very well. Almost bezel-less screen here. Let's take that off. So there's all that. We have our micro SD card in here. I'll put a link in the description from where I got this from. 32 gigabytes is what this came with, and it is preloaded. USB-C for charging, headphone jack right there. Volume wheel, which I really liked instead of a button, just up and down, up and down. Power, and then like an indicator for the battery life. And then you can open it up from the back, pull out the 1900 milliamp hour battery if you need to, want to take it apart, that kind of thing. I mean, I don't know why you would have to, but you can if need be. So nice little design here. I'll hold the button down for a second. And the one thing from my time playing with this, and I said this in another video recently, is that the screens that they're using have been really good on all these different devices. And this little thing, like, it's not a crappy screen. Like, it looks really good. So the front end here, the UI, recent favorites, games, RetroArch, apps, and settings. So in settings, you can change the brightness up and down, change the language, key mapping, background volume, hibernate, reset, hardware test. So you could test like the buttons and stuff like that. Apps, you have open bore, bunch of stuff here. Dingux Commander, I guess like a file explorer. So if you recall earlier in the video, I put a little overlay saying I had a weird experience with this device. So let's talk about that, right? Now, everything you saw up until this point in the video, I recorded about a month ago, so I'm very late getting this video out there as I ran into a problem with the device. At some point while I was testing this thing, trying to get footage ready for, you know, gameplay testing and whatnot, the speakers started crackling like real bad. And then all of a sudden, just poof, it stopped working. The screen went off. I was like, what's going on here? You know, I tried checking everything I possibly could, recharging it. Oh, maybe the battery's dead. Check the speaker connections, everything. I couldn't figure it out, so I contacted the company that I got it from, keepretro.com, and they were like, hey, well, we checked it before we sent it to you, so there was no problem. I'm like, no, it just stopped working. Now, the battery's good, it's charged, it just won't turn on. If I turn it on, the screen stays black, and the speaker just, like, makes a loud crackling noise. I don't know what's up with this thing. And, you know, eventually they just stopped responding to me. I wanted to finish this video, so I ordered another one elsewhere. That's one thing to keep note of, like, to keep in mind. When ordering these kind of devices, definitely, you know, look at the companies and their track records as far as, like, taking care of the customer, that kind of thing. Just something to point out, you know. Sometimes you'll get better deals, but then if you have a problem with, you know, the device and you ordered it directly from a company in China, they may not support you in the end. I don't know, but I did get another device and I've been using it for a little while now, about the past week. I wanted to make sure I didn't have any issues with it, and I think it was just an isolated problem, maybe just that unit that I had. So, you know, I've seen a lot of people saying how they really like this device, and I wanted to continue on. So testing this thing, playing these different games and whatnot. The system supports up to like PS1. It may struggle with certain other things, and with this device, has like over 5,000 games, almost 6,000 games built into it. Not everything works. There's some arcade stuff that just doesn't work at all. It just boots up and then it exits out, or it boots up and it just stays on a black screen forever. Some games will boot up and stay on a black screen for a few seconds and then go to the game, but I'm talking like there's quite a few arcade games that just wouldn't boot up. But, you know, I actually still, despite that, I think it's just a build quality issue as far as the ROMs. Maybe, you know, there's certain things not put in there correctly, not the right ROM sets, that kind of thing. I don't know. I didn't really dig too deep into the build that's on the SD card. But everything else seems to have performed fairly well. PlayStation 1, not everything is going to be 100%, but the games I played on it, like Bloody Roar 2, performed fantastically well. I was surprised with that. A lot of handheld stuff works. Everything works. 8 and 16-bit stuff works for the most part. Now, like Super Nintendo, certain special chip games may struggle, and that's one thing to keep in mind, is this is a fairly underpowered device. But for what it is and the price point that you should be able to find it for, around the $50 you know price. I've seen it for $60, $70, $80. Just depends on where you look and who you're willing to risk buying from, right? I think at that lower price point, at $50, it's not a bad device. The screen looks great. The D-pad, while a little stiff, and it's definitely cramped, it's a small little baby device here, everything still feels fairly fine. Like, I'm pleasantly surprised with this thing. I think this is a great option if you just want to forego some of the you know, like, craziness with it. Like, okay, I don't need thousands of games. Maybe have it dedicated to just handhelds, because, you know, that's just something I'm throwing out there. I know not everybody's going to care to do it that way, but to me, it's like, okay, this thing's perfect for like Neo Geo Pocket Color, Game Boy Advance, Game Gear, stuff like that. And with custom firmwares coming out now, which I think is like just recent, so you know, when I first recorded my video for this thing, I don't think there was anything available out there yet, but I may take a look and do a follow-up in the very near future. But out of the box, it's a neat little device that, hey, you might want to kind of cut down on some of the games, add some other stuff that you want, that kind of thing. The build quality is decent, even though I did have a problem with the first one that I got. And I did notice with the second one, the volume is actually louder when it was all the way to max than the first one. And it was just kind of like, okay, maybe there was just something really wrong with that one. Because the second one, the speaker's a little bit louder. It's still not crazy loud. Some emulators and some games, the sound will not be great, but for the most part, with that mono speaker, it sounded decent for me. But yeah, I just wanted to share this one with you guys real quick. Really do appreciate every single one of y'all. And with that said, I will catch you on the next one. Bye.